Mr. Dan Okanya, the moderator, take his position and manage this exactly. Well, they had given you 1 hour, 10 minutes, but we will allow you a maximum of 50 minutes. A maximum of 15 minutes, okay? And you can see the audience is very excited and very attentive. Kindly don't bore them. At exactly 15 minutes, I'll call you out. Good afternoon once again. Over to you, Mr. Dan Okanya.
Thank you very much, moderator, for this opportunity. My work is very simple. One is to invite the panelists. Two is to keep asking questions as they provide the answer. So it won't be a huge task. And at this juncture, I would like to invite Mr. Musa Okello, the Deputy Chairman General, National Organization of Trade Union. You're most welcome. I would also like to invite Mr. Jailas Kirove from International Labour Organization to take up his seat. I would like to invite Ms. Enid Nambuya, Executive Director, UWERA. I would also wish to invite the representative of Executive Director, Federation of Uganda Employers, Ms. Grace Nalakoza, to come and take up her seat. I've received apology from Mr. Martin Wandera, who has a session this afternoon and may not be able to join us. So we'll kickstart, and in case he shows up, we'll ably welcome him. Thank you, our panelists. I would like just to give you a minute for the round of introduction so that the audience here can get to know who you are before we roll up to the conversation. A minute, please. I will start from Mr. Musa Okello.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Musa Okello, Vice Chairman, General National Organization of Trade Unions, and General Secretary, National Union of Educational Institutions.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jelas Chirove from ILO. ILO Office for East Africa based in Dar es Salaam. I would have said many of you know us, but after Professor Mtunzi started questioning that narrative, and also within the context of the topic, let me just say we'll spend some time and try to help each other to understand what we do. Thank you.
Gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Are we here? Okay, thank you so much. My name is Enid Nambuya. I work with the Uganda Association of External Recruitment Agencies. We are trending right now. I have a membership of 304 companies that externalize Ugandans abroad for work. If Mr. Wandera was here, he would tell you they have licensed 340 companies to externalize Ugandans abroad for work. So when we talk about decent work, issues of protection, rights, respect, you could ask your question, why are so many Ugandans going? Is it because of the lack of respect and promotion of human rights in your enterprises? Thank you very much.
Good afternoon to you all. I am Grace Navakoza, and I am the Head of Employment Relations and Legal Services at the Federation of Uganda Employers.
Thank you very much for the round of introduction. Just to start quickly, like I'm very much aware, we have been hearing a lot about decent work. Just to try and unpack, if someone asks what is it, in its reality, we see it as a type of work for which I hope every one of us would aspire to have. It's done under conditions where people gainfully have a gainful employment. This is in terms of income, which it gives them, but also we look into in terms of availability of the opportunities. And we see the people in front of us here are very key in ensuring it's not just work, but it's decent in so many structures, as we'll be hearing from them. Just to pick up from, to start with Mr. Musa Okello, who also represent interest of workers. In your view, what are some of the challenges and opportunities you see when it comes to enhancing decent work and productive employment creation?
Thank you, moderator, for this opportunity. To begin with, a lot of effort has been made towards supporting the young workers in this country, the young people in this country, to find work, the women to find what to do. Investors have been encouraged to come into this country and create jobs for our people, which is a good thing. But the question is, do they find decent work? And to me, the answer is no, in most of those places. I asked one person just before we got into this place that where are the Chinese in this room? Employers are here, and Chinese are part of the employers. Why are they not here? And most of the work that we are referring to as not being decent are found in those Chinese factories. What do we mean here? Decent work refers to work that creates a free environment, that pays well, that gives freedom of expression to the workers. That kind of environment does not exist in those places. And this would be a good forum for us to address it to them. Unfortunately, they are not here. And Federation of Uganda Employers, I think there is need for us to have a forum where we have these people. Because in most cases, we, the trade unionists, end up going to those places and we are sent out and we find ourselves in a very difficult situation. So there is need for us to have a forum where we can interact with these people. Because the people who work for them are our children, our sisters, our brothers. And we need to pay attention to their plight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to say that I think they could be colors which may not be here, but the companies may be represented in one or the other, so the message will be delivered. Let me just get to Grace from in that very line. What do you see as the kind of challenges and opportunities when it comes to ensuring decent work and productive employment at our workplaces?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dan. Over the years, we have seen situations where, okay, I want to refer to maybe the times before we had the operationalization of the industrial court, where you find that there were more or less reluctancy on the part of the employers, because at the end of the day they would know that, well, who is going to come after me, who is going to come and pursue, whether I'm following the right thing or doing the right thing, giving the right jobs, making the right pay, ensuring that employees are taking the stipulated leave or overtime and things of the sort. But we have seen that over the time, employers increasingly, and when I say employers, we are really speaking across the board. We are not saying that it is this kind of employers and not this kind of employers, but across the board, you find that there has been willingness from the employers to know what is it that is expected of me in terms of either the law, first and foremost, but also emulating the good practices. What are the other employers doing right that I can borrow from? So you find that over the years, employers are really yearning to know the right thing and do the right thing and do it rightly, to ensure that generally there is decency, okay? Ensuring that there is equal pay for equal work done, but also through the surveys that we have done, either the Employer of the Award survey that has been spoken about this morning, but also for the salary surveys, that you find that there is always willingness from the employers to ensure that there is decency and borrow from good practices elsewhere.
Thank you. And in the similar line, Enid, if you could also share with us from labor externalization perspective, what do you see as a challenge? Could be internally, but also externally when it comes to ensuring decent and productive employment.
Thank you very much, moderator. If we make reference to the employment policy of 2011, it makes reference to externalization of labor and also internal labor, because it was recognized that even as Ugandans travel abroad for work, there are other persons within the region from all over the world working in Uganda. But that narrative is not well captured, that Uganda actually is a receiving country and also a transiting country for migrant workers. I appreciate our colleague from the refugee camps. Refugees are also migrants, but for them they are forced migrants. But we have migrants who move. It may not be by force because of war, but it may be because of the economic pressures. I know our main speaker comes from South Africa. There are so many Ugandans down there trying to make a living, but xenophobia catches them once in a while. But Ugandans feel entitled to go to South Africa because of our history with them. People who went to school with them do know that we have South African children here that are not being claimed. So Ugandans go down there expecting to work. Yeah, so now issues of decency and promotion of respect of rights for workers, migrant workers. It depends on how they travel. Have they traveled through legal means or illegal means? Have they traveled when they already have a job and a contract, or they are traveling down to see what is going on? Are they exploring? Have they gone down as footballers and they decide to stay? Have they gone down as entertainers like our main speaker is talking about and they decide to stay? So the decency to do with migrant workers depends on how they enter the country of destination and how they left their country of the sending country. One of the biggest challenges we have is if someone travels without a contract, anything can happen to them when they arrive in the country of destination. Number one, the employer they expected to have may change at the airport. Someone receives you at the airport and passes you on to another person. So when you travel in a means of let me explore and see, it is very precarious. If you've been reading the papers, you know what is happening in Dubai right now. Many young women are in prison because of overstay of visas. Many people talk to us, they call us and complain, how did this happen? If you travel with a tourist visa, it has a limitation, 3 months, maybe 6 months if you're lucky. And if you decide to employ yourself or be employed by any other person in Dubai right now, the laws have changed. The pre-COVID Dubai accepted anyone to go there and make their fortune. But the post-COVID Dubai is hunting down. is making sure anyone who's not supposed to be there is out. Those are the post-COVID things, and that is the reality we are facing now. Anyone who thought they could go to Dubai, hop on a plane, and go and try their luck can no longer do that. The laws are being tightened slowly by slowly. So when you talk about decent work, it starts with the means within which you move from one place to the other to get that job. What have you been promised? In this room, I believe we are mainly private sector. Private sector have these very flowery contracts, very flowery adverts. And I wanted to engage Amref and the breweries about they won, yes, but what are the underlying factors? You can't get 6 months maternity, but is everyone getting it or a certain category? So some of the things that we talk about, respect. How do you show that you respect your employee? From the topmost CEO to the bottom CEO. How do you show that their rights are protected if they are not allowed to associate? Someone was telling me that why should the unions come in and tell them how much to pay? Uganda has a challenge. People come to us and say, you are insisting that we are paying Ugandans very little, but in your country you don't have a living wage, neither do you have a minimum wage. Those are some of the things that I'm sure our guest of honor could have spoken about. The living wage and the minimum wage. Uganda does not have any of that because they are protecting investors just as yourselves. You have a freehold to do whatever you want with people's lives and sustenance. And lastly, how do we treat people in that environment? Yes, you've come to Uganda as a migrant worker. Someone was looking for color in this room. There may be no color in this room, but that is one of the issues, discrimination. Why aren't they here? The ones that bring other people here. Why aren't they here? For example, the young lady from the hotel industry has left, but the hospitality industry, if you're talking about decent jobs, it's also about what job? In the hospitality industry, in the major hotels, you saw what happened at lunch downstairs. The manager was from where? Okay? So if all the managers in the hospitality industry are not Ugandans, how can a Ugandan youth aspire to be in the hospitality industry when all the managers are not Ugandan? That is something I wanted to leave on your board. So they will aspire to go abroad. I was speaking to a young man who's just come back from Saudi Arabia. He's a barrister, and he told me a certain position he holds where he earns the equivalent of 4 million Uganda shillings. Barrister. Mixes coffee in all shapes and sizes. I don't know if any of you have a coffee something somewhere and that you could afford to pay even your manager 4 million. But the government of Uganda has allowed you to pay what you want, unfair as it is. So I always try to bring that issue here because when we are being attacked, our children are going abroad, they are suffering, they are dying. Why? A domestic worker will earn 900,000, equivalent of Uganda money. Money that you bankers are paying for a graduate, a teller. A graduate teller is earning 900, not so? Yeah. So a parent will carry their child and say, I had an instance where a parent carried a graduate working in Arua in a bank and said, no, let her go abroad. Why? Because the 900 she earns here, NSSF, pay as you earn, you lost money on the bank, she ends up with 100K. She can't leave. But I hear if she goes as a domestic worker, she'll earn 900, her food is taken care of, her accommodation is taken care of, and I also hear if she stays there 2 years, the next visa she'll be able to do another job. So the issue is, for me I work in externalization of labor, but we are always having this roundabout conversation. If you paid well, how many people do you think would stay if you paid well? Employers in this room. I too believe I'm not being paid well. And I have been a migrant worker. But I was a migrant worker during my school time. And I made a conscious decision to come back home. But there are people who are leaving Uganda because they do not see light at the end of the tunnel. Okay? I want the unions to insist on a minimum wage. What we have in the books is 6,000 shillings. Who can live on 6,000 shillings? CEOs, HR people. Our guest speaker said HR people will be important. And I can assure you'll be important if you stand up for the minimum wage, if you stand up for the living wage. Until you do that, nothing. I can assure you. Yeah. So people will continue leaving Uganda to work elsewhere, and you will continue looking at your CEOs, bringing other people to manage what you should be managing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Enid, you've made Jailo's work a little bit easy because and Musa here is very happy with you. Let's Jailos, from ILO perspective, what do you think is missing in us driving from the points and the speeches we've already had from the speakers here? What do you think is that missing for us to be able to have decent work? We believe it's something very important, and it's something which ILO really aspire that it should be there, and the work has to be decent. But how do we do it? How do we do it? What are some of these strategies, like we are talking here? What are some of these strategies you find we can put in place to ensure we have a decent work?
Okay, thank you very much. A very big question that you asked, but let me add my voice to this discussion about the definition, because you can decide to be simple about it, but also technical, as my principal here will agree. I think we are agreeing that decent work is not just every job that is there, but a job with a certain minimum standards. What are those certain minimum standards? They are looked at in 4 dimensions. Number one, the first dimension that we call employment, and it has been referred to. For example, what do you get at the end of the month? Is it a living wage? Is it a wage that helps me to work out of poverty? I think I had reference to minimum wage. In some countries there is a minimum wage, but that minimum wage does not help me to work out of poverty. So many countries want to talk about the living wage. But also my contract situation. Do I have a contract, and what does it say? Number 2, what you call rights. Certain rights that a worker should enjoy when they are in that workplace. For example, right to collective bargaining, right to belong to a trade union, freedom of expression. So those are certain rights. I'm talking about the basics, and these are found in what we call the 8 core conventions of the ILO that we expect each country that is a member state at least to ratify. Professor said there are many conventions. There are 190 of them, but there are 8. I think we added another one this year, on occupational safety and health because of COVID. The third dimension is what we call social dialogue. Am I free as a worker to discuss my working environment, my working conditions when I am in the workplace? Do I have that freedom? Can I collectively bargain about what I get? Call it bipartite social dialogue. There is also tripartite social dialogue. These issues we are talking about of minimum wages and so on are aspects that come out of dialogue. So is there that freedom? Is there that framework for me to dialogue? And then, of course, social protection. What are the basic protection that I have? For example, do I have a pension which can help me when I retire? Do I have a health insurance which can help me when I'm sick? Do I have basic maternity protection that if I am a lady and I want to go and deliver a baby, I have assurance that my job is there? And I was very happy to learn, I think, a very, very good experience from, we talked about 6 months. Wow, I said, wow, this is good. So in simple terms, those are the dimensions of decent work. And these dimensions actually talk to three areas. Number one, what you call the quantity. So when we talk about decent work, we have the issue of the quantity of the jobs. Number two, the quality of the jobs. And number three, the conditions in which it is available. Let me come to quantity. We hear a lot about unemployment or youth unemployment or unemployment. Are there enough jobs for everyone? No. So you then see that if there are not enough jobs for everyone, then sometimes employers will just offer whatever they want and they will find takers. They will find people who are saying, I'm available. And then, but then that job falls below certain standards, because then they can offer anything, or they can say, okay, this month I will give you this, and next month you are fired, and so on. So there is the quantity of the jobs, which is a challenge in our part of the world. Number two is the quality of the jobs. What are the working conditions when I'm there? What happens when I get injured? What happens when I get sick? What happens when I fall pregnant? What happens when I want to get a higher salary? What happens when I feel that my occupational safety and situation needs to be changed, and so on? All that talks to equality. And then the conditions in which it is offered are now about non-discrimination, whether by age or sex or what, and it should be freely chosen. Of course, we are talking about work that is no forced labor, no child labor, and so on. So then when you add that up, you come up with what are called the minimum 8 core conventions, and this is really on the minimum. Above that is now where we say decent work is a goal. So when you look at all the dimensions of decent work, you see that we are far away from achieving it. We are far away from achieving all those conditions. ILO attempted to come up with indicators of decent work. Let me tell you, we counted up to 72. We stopped there, and we were still counting, because the experts wanted to say exactly what is the definition of decent work. What are the indicators? Under social dialogue, they were counting 15, 20 indicators. Under employment, 15, 20. Under social protection, 15, 20, and we stopped at 72. We haven't finished the exercise, because there are several dimensions, and that's where we saw that actually, even in developed countries, we may actually not say we have fully achieved decent work. COVID-19, when it came, people lost jobs. People who had permanent contracts lost jobs, lost employment. So what do we need to do is the big issue. We agree that, number one, there are not enough jobs for everyone. So we need economies to be able to create more jobs, especially for young people. How do we do that? A number of issues. We need to start even from the macroeconomic policies and frameworks, because this is what determines the role of government, what also points to the role of the private sector in employment creation. What are the exchange rate policies? What is the fiscal policy? What is the monetary? Is it expansionary? Does it allow private sector to grow? And so on and so forth. Secondly, we then look at comprehensively, because job creation comes principally from the private sector. And when we talk about private sector, we talk about sectors: tourism, energy, construction, agriculture, and so on. When these sectors are going about their own programs, to what extent are they deliberately focusing on decent job creation? Most of the time, the stakeholders in the tourism sector think they are just bringing in tourists, and they want to expand the numbers, they want to increase bed capacity, they want to bring in more tourists from these markets and so on. But they don't necessarily measure what is the employment impact of that. Go to agriculture. We want to increase production, we want to increase productivity, we want food security, we want nutrition and so on. But as you do that, that is where employment creation happens. Go to any sector, construction, the same. So in ILO, we are promoting what you call comprehensive policy frameworks to say employment creation is not a preserve of Ministry of Labor alone. In fact, Ministry of Labor cannot create jobs. But they can coordinate a framework where these sectors that are responsible for, that are responsible for employment creation can be able to look at what they do with an employment lens. In Uganda here, we did a study which is called Employment Diagnostic Analysis 2009. You can Google that document to say what is the deficit of decent job creation in Uganda. Job creation is happening. We're talking about, Professor was talking about informal economy, and somebody, I think Douglas said 90%. We found that jobs are being created in the informal economy, most of them. But are they decent? They are not. Professor said, let's not talk about transitioning, because where do we take them? But this is the place where the quality of the jobs have question marks in the informal economy. We cannot run away from that. Contracts that are fragile, that are precarious, where people maybe may not know what they are supposed to be paid at of the month, there are no rights, there is no, the moment you start joining a trade union, there's a problem, you cannot unionize, all those are decent work deficits. So, from the employment diagnostic analysis, we are saying we would like to come up with, support the government to come up with a national employment strategy. This is what I talked about, is actually part of our meetings of next week, from tomorrow, to say which are the sectors that have potential to create more jobs. We need to look at them. And secondly, which are the sectors that are able to create more productive jobs. And then we talk about this phenomenon which is called structural transformation, transferring of productive resources and human capital from less productive to more productive sectors. This is where you have better jobs, more income, more rights, better employment opportunities, and so on. So, if you look at all this, you will see that it doesn't just happen. It needs a government to lead and direct a process, to show the direction of it needs government to bring all the stakeholders together, including employers and private sector. It needs government to take a deliberate approach to employment creation, because we have seen, including everyone, that it doesn't just happen automatically. There can be growth, and the employment diagnostic analysis said that there is growth for the last 10 years, growth, but not with requisite productive and decent jobs. So, more comprehensive policy frameworks, a deliberate approach towards employment creation, and then all the sectors coming together with a focus on those sectors that have potential for more jobs, that are better jobs, and that can absorb the majority of the young people. A long answer. I hope it helps.
Thank you very much. It has been long but very useful to us. Let me get to Mr. Okello. And like it has already been indicated by the panelists here, how has social dialogue been effective in promoting kind of harmonious industrial relations in the country? Looking at it from the angle that when there is decent work, there is issue of decent, but respecting rights, all these and the rest culminate into us having harmonious industrial relations, and social dialogue being a key driver for us to look there. Do you see we are somewhere doing well in terms of social dialogue, or utilizing it to handle all these issues as we are discussing?
Thank you. First of all, social dialogue in itself is supposed to be an opportunity for us to talk and agree or disagree. When you ask me whether social dialogue has been effective, I think the first question should be whether there is social dialogue in the first place. I come from the public sector. I am from the educational institutions. And we've gone to the extent of forming a negotiating council at the public service level. That does not exist in the private sector. There is no such a forum where the workers will sit with their employers freely and negotiate their terms and conditions of service in the private sector. So, whether social dialogue has been effective or not, answer the first question, is it there? When you answer the first question, then we will come down and see whether it has been effective. Of course, having said that it does not exist, then the effectiveness will not arise. But I would like to bring this to the audience. I mentioned earlier on that there is a section of employers in this country who do not even believe in social dialogue. And I was told about colors. If they are represented here, they know who I'm talking about. And that category of employers in this country are treasured. They are untouchable. And I think we need to rise up to the task as Ugandans, because the people who work for this category of employers are Ugandans. They need to be provided with an opportunity to speak out. Occupational health and safety is terrible in those places, and no one can talk about it. People are working under deplorable conditions. Some of them are locked up in factories for days, and no one can speak for them. So if you ask me whether social dialogue has been effective, no, it has not been effective, because it does not even exist in some of these places. What do we need to do? I think we need to come together as Ugandans, as Africans, and speak out against these vices. Yes, we want the jobs, and they have the means to create the jobs for us. But we want decent work for our people. And for us to get decent work, we must have dialogue with them. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I hear you. I thought it do exist, but it was a very challenging question. And it's a food for thought for all of us here to really actually look into whether we do have these mechanisms back at work, our workplaces, and if not, how best do we ensure we get them into play. Still with you, what's that? What more do you think we can do? Because now, apart from saying yes, we have identified, it may not be there, it may be not effective even where it exists. What do you think we can do more to ensure we have this work?
Thank you. We have so much that we can do. To begin with, we have a very vibrant parliament. We can lobby them. All of us together, the media, I hope the media houses are represented here. The media houses, the trade unions, my sister here from the Labor Export, all of us together need to speak out. We need to come together and speak out on these issues. That is one. Two, we mentioned something about the minimum wage, which is still 6,000 to date. And by the way, if someone paid a maid 6,000 shillings, you can't sue them, because that is in the current minimum wage. Yeah, that is the law. So I can easily pay my maid 6,000 shillings, and I say I've paid a minimum wage. Now, we processed a minimum wage bill together with our members of parliament, and it went as far as the big house. You know, the big house near the lake. And it was returned to parliament because the big man had issues with it. Now, we cannot leave it to parliament alone. All of us must speak for this minimum wage. All of you must come out and speak for them, because it is good even for your own industries. The pressures you have now because of pay will not be there when you have a minimum wage. And some people are saying, but how can you have a uniform minimum? We are not saying that. We can't have a uniform minimum wage. We are actually saying, let's have a sectoral minimum wage. The house girls have their own minimum wage. the plantation workers have their own minimum wage, the public servant have their own minimum wage. And someone is saying, I still have issues with it because there are some special people called investors in this country who are going to be oppressed by that minimum wage. We can't accept that. We can't allow that to continue happening. And who is going to who is going to speak about it? It's you and me.
Thank you very much. Grace, from what do you think, or what has FUE done to ensure we strengthen the social dialogue, but also we ensure we enhance creation of decent jobs?
Thank you very much, Adan. Now, as the Federation of Ugandan Employers would like to anchor the decent work with the Decent Work Country program that crafts out different focus areas where both the employers and the workers, but also government, are going to be ensuring or working together to ensure decent work. And most of the areas really have been captured by our colleague from the ILO, and it is to do with proper labor administration, to ensure that inspections are done at the different workplaces, to be able to identify the things that Mr. Musa has been speaking about, who is not complying, what are the safety gaps that are existing with the employers, but also to give advice to the employers on what needs to be done. But also it covers issues to do with social protection, which we have deliberated on. What are some of the remittances? What are some of the benefits or retirement schemes that are available for staff at the time when they're exiting? So there are so many things and so many programs that can be talked about. Now, Mr. Musa earlier on spoke about the private sector not having a joint negotiating machinery. Like again, he has appreciated. In the private sector, you find that we have different sectors, and different sectors doing different things. Or even in a sector, there are also subsectors. You find that in agriculture, there is horticulture, there is fishery, so you find that even in a sector, there is breakdown of subsectors and subsectors and subsectors. So you find that now social dialogue is a mixture of, yes, it exists, but also because for some employers it is a new concept. When you tell them dialogue with who? You came here to work, do your work, and that is it. I gave you a contract and that is it. So some of these things that we keep emphasizing as the Federation of Ugandan Employers, to introduce these concepts to the employers to be able to understand that, dialogue doesn't mean that you're going to lose away your responsibility as an employer, but it is also to do with giving a listening ear, having your employees being involved in some of these aspects or activities in their different workplaces. But more broadly, away from the Decent Work Country program, which is really the general overall framework within which we operate in as the employers and workers and government, to ensure overall decent work, there are so many things that we also do now. These that we do are also at basically individual level, the individual employers, things to do with advisory. Okay, because like I earlier on shared, employers these days are more willing to know what is the right thing or what is the best practice and what does the law say, so that we are not again in contravention with the law, or there are no suits coming up because of non-compliance. So you find that they are always willing to receive that advice. So as the Federation, we are always available to give that advice. But also, most importantly, we experience a gap that also still affects the entire decent work and social dialogue. You find that right now the discussions, someone spoke about, I think it was Amref, they spoke about 6 months of maternity leave. You know, some employers are not even willing to, once they see you're still in your productive age, they actually do not want to employ you. But even others say that, no, you will actually not take maternity leave. So you find there is a mixture of those kinds of aspects. But also, because these laws were crafted almost 10 years back, issues to do with breastfeeding, supporting breastfeeding mothers or female employees for antenatal and postnatal care were not actually taken care of at that point in time. But you find that now, because we want to be seen to promote decent work, you find that those are the conversations that we have to take on. What happens after someone has finished maternity leave? If you can only stop at 3 months, or you can only stop at 60 working days, what happens thereafter? How then do you support this female employee to ensure that they are actually still productive at work, but also ensuring that they are, you know, taking care of their child and things of that sort? So I would say that the concept of social dialogue is well known to some of the employers, and they have embraced it, but to others it is an ongoing process to enable them understand what is even the benefit of social dialogue, what comes out of social protection, okay, and the entire compliances with all these remittances that you find that we have to meet as the employers. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. And I really hear you. I know you've been doing a lot of work with the NOTU at a bipartite level in streamlining some of these areas and ensuring members get to know. Could you also share with us some of the key achievements or milestones you've so far gained in these processes, in whatever you do, in ensuring social dialogue is really appreciated?
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to start from the point that I think we have more or less a cordial working relationship with the labor unions. You find that sometimes they get in touch with us. Your employer has done this, and you tell them, okay, you just give us time. We shall have a discussion with this employer and try to understand what challenge are they actually going through, so that, you know, we are able to rectify the concerns that they are going through. But you find that that is now for the employers that have labor unions. But we are also saying that the concept of social dialogue does not necessarily mean that there must be a labor union at your workplace. Some employers have actually come up with staff forums, you know, those engagement discussions or employee engagement surveys, just to be able to be in touch with reality with their employees, to be able to understand, are we still moving in the right direction with our employees? Okay, what is it that we can borrow from the other colleagues, either in this same workplace or even outside? And you find that even at the sectoral approach, because again, we have also sectoral associations that are still also members of the Federation of Vegan Employers, who we work closely with, okay, just to be able to ensure that besides the sector, the association itself, we are also engaging with their members more directly on issues of social dialogue. So the concept is not that there must be a union at your workplace, but there are so many platforms within which an employer can actually exercise social dialogue, ensuring safety and health, okay, and also having those committees that are stipulated under the law, ensuring that employees are not victimized, but also accessibility of the workplace, because we have talked about persons with disabilities. So you find how well is your workplace accessible, what are some of the mechanisms you have put in place to ensure that persons with disabilities can actually come and work in that particular workplace. So it is really, you know, things to do with sensitization, but also advising the employers, which is an ongoing process. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And maybe, Enid, could you share with us from a specific point of view, what is this like beyond your, beyond others, down to the recruitment agencies? What are these kind of challenges do they face in terms of ensuring decent work for migrant workers, but also they have mechanism like of social dialogue to be able to ensure the workers, migrant workers' rights are really respected?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. I would like to say that we've also had opportunities for engagement with ILO in terms of social protection and social dialogue. So, as well as IOM. So we've been working with both IOM and ILO for social dialogue right from the grassroots. And as I speak now, we have had a number of teams coming from the periphery. I'll call it the periphery of Uganda. That is the border districts, because many people on the borders move between the borders for work. Either they're moving to Kenya or they're coming to Uganda, they're moving to TZ or coming to Uganda, DRC, and Sudan. So most of our engagement we've had right now is for the dialogue to start at the periphery, for people to understand that in spite of the porous borders, you can't just go into a country and work. And if you do, what are the safety measures that you may have? In terms of professionals, the challenges we have are with portability of their social security, for example. Some people do manage to travel in the region and work for professional jobs. But then when it comes to the social protection safety networks, they fall through because now their NSSF is not portable and they have to engage around portability of NSSF, for example. But we are dialoguing with the communities. One thing maybe you may appreciate is for youth to start working, their parents have a say as to when they start working. A 6-year-old may start working with a parent in the market, or may start working with a father in the garage. In the guise of this apprenticeship we are talking about, actually starts in the home. So young people start working early. So you start talking about child labor, and for us, we are talking about it in terms of you cannot externalize someone who is not yet 21 years of age. And people ask you why. If they are already working in Uganda at 15, at 16, why are you saying they cannot go abroad for work? So we have that dialogue around age. We have the dialogue around having proper documentation, having a proper ID, having a passport, having proper qualifications. One of the biggest challenges we've faced is falsification of documents. And I'm sure you're also facing it when you dig deeper. When someone is desperate for a job, they'll falsify documents, they'll falsify the age. You'll find people with IDs of 21, but if you catch them unknowingly, they'll tell you they are 16 or they are 15. You have falsification of documents because suddenly someone is told you must at least have senior 4 qualifications to qualify, basically. And they go to the nearest secondary school and do whatever they need to do and bring you that living certificate and even falsify the CAPAS slip. The issues down at NASA are really immense. So you have issues of falsified qualifications. Thirdly, we have the issue of people doing interviews for others. Yes, because you see when people are being externalized, the companies abroad have also brought on board media platforms like Teams and whatever. So they'll interview someone on camera. And you will be interviewed on your prowess in the language, etc., etc., issues like height, depending on the job you're going to, and then someone gets there and is someone else. So you've interviewed someone else and someone else comes in. So initially, because all Africans looked the same, it was easy, seriously, it was easy for people to get away with other people's documentation. But what they've done abroad, they are bringing African HRs to the table. Yes, they're bringing African HRs, they're even flying them to Uganda to interview. So the issues we've had are falsification of documents, people doing other people's interviews. The other area they're falsifying is medical results are being falsified. Young women who discover themselves pregnant will get another young one to sit that medical. It has to, they're immense, they're really, really immense. So in the outside world, Uganda is actually being looked at with a question mark, whereas we appear like we have all these legible persons, both for the informal and formal sector. They are also coming up to say Ugandans falsify documents a lot. It is something that is very unsavory, but it is happening. Under IOM, there's something called IRIS. It has to do with ethical recruitment. So all our major companies have been trained on ethical recruitment, but they tell you one thing. To get a job abroad, they have to pay for it. They have to pay an agent for that job. So that is a very, very big challenge, and I think you're aware of it. Yes, people have to pay for those jobs to come to Uganda, to come to Kenya, to go to Tanzania, and they'll tell you we have 1,000 jobs, yet they have maybe 10. And then they'll interview, they'll make you bring maybe 100 people to Sheraton, you pay them, you house them, you do everything. And then you have 10 visas come through. So there's a lot of foul play, even within the international agencies, especially those coming out of the Middle East, not giving us the right information of the kind of jobs that they have. Then lastly, there's something called job sourcing, where you may be told in a month's time. Okay, for Qatar, I think we had 2 years to source people for Qatar. So people were being sourced for Qatar. But when the visas suddenly started coming out, they were very, very, very specific. I think most of the lucrative or nice jobs or decent jobs went to Europe. Africa is getting the rest. So when you talk about challenges in jobs being sourced, that World Cup jobs were beautiful jobs. 6 months visa, it expires, you're allowed to remain in Qatar and extend it for another job, which is not happening elsewhere in the Middle East. That's why we thought they were very good jobs. Like you can, right now in the Middle East, you cannot easily move from the initial job for which visa you have to another one. But for Qatar, after the World Cup, they are allowing people to stay there for 6 months, and then you can change your visa. So we thought those were lucrative jobs. But when the visa started coming down, the jobs we thought people would get are not available. You know, like, for example, being in charge of the stewards in a particular section of the VIP, language skills, they were looking for people who can speak other languages, English, French, Japanese, name it. And you'll be surprised. We have Ugandans who speak all those languages. They've either studied there or they are working with those people. Translation services, we've not been able to get those jobs. But they were advertised and they were sourced. So those are some of the challenges we are facing. And when we come to dialogue, we've been talking a lot on the media to warn young people about the sourcing of those jobs. Not everyone who tells you has a job actually has a job. We are telling them they must ensure they go to the Ministry of Gender to see whether the company that is advertising those jobs actually has a license. Many people think if a company is registered to run a business, it also has a license to externalize. That's not the case. Those are two different things. Yes, you have a right to have a business, but you must also be licensed by the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development because it's the regulator. The next thing has to do with those who can externalize. If you are running a tour agency, yes, you can get a person a visa to travel as a tourist, but you cannot externalize that person for work. And that is the biggest challenge we've had right now, especially for Dubai, because Dubai was welcoming tourists of all levels. They didn't even care how much money you had. So many young people fell in that trap of traveling with tour agencies because you just need maybe $2,000 ticket, accommodation maybe for a week, and you're good to go. So many people thought it was cheaper than going through a company which maybe charge you much more than that because the employer pays principle has not been very well espoused here, and I think you'll talk about it more. People are supposed to travel for work, whatever level of job it is, without paying for it. But so far, we have not been able to actualize that at the moment. So social dialogue, we're having it in the media. I have the opportunity to speak to you as well, but we've been speaking to parents, we've been speaking to young people themselves in schools, in marketplaces, in the informal areas where they work, and we discovered downtown Chikubo, for example, there are very many Ugandans working in China. Did you know that? Very many Ugandans in China. If you went to China now and you didn't have money, you can get money through a Ugandan in China collaborating with a Uganda back home. It happened to me. I just told, go to Street X, look for somebody like this, and I found a very big Ugandan community in Beijing. I found a Ugandan community in Guangzhou. I found a Ugandan community in Nanjing. So they are there, but not protected. Foreign Affairs doesn't want to know. It will be alerted, God forbid, when they are caught up by the law for trafficking drugs, trafficking in human beings. But otherwise, I think our biggest challenge is that the government has not realized that their people are traveling for work. And even when the situation in Uganda improves, there will still be people who think the jobs in Uganda are not good enough or are not paying enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. You've exhausted it, and I think the other question I would ask is that what is that you as URA is doing, but what you'd also like other partners to do in terms of supporting you to come up or to curb such challenges.
So I'll start by thanking ILO. They've enabled us to put together our 2022-27 strategic plan. And one of the things we're talking about is still social dialogue, how to dialogue with the private sector to make sure that even when our people come back after the 2 years, you can take them on because those are free skills. You don't have to train. You're getting someone who's already trained. Number two, we are looking at the skill set. Earlier on, people were talking about the skill set. And I think one of the biggest skill sets that we have a challenge with is language. Many Ugandans speak only one language. For us to be marketable abroad, we need to learn a second language. And one of the reasons why we are not getting the very good jobs in the Middle East, for example, they'll want a doctor who speaks Arabic. They want a doctor who can engage with the ordinary person. So the language skill set. We must appreciate that not all Ugandans can work in Uganda, but they can work all over the world. So I appreciate if you added a language into the skill set as a part of the social skills. The third thing that we have done is that we have befriended Parliament. Yesterday we appeared before the Foreign Affairs Committee to explain that it's not about what happens to Ugandans when they go abroad, but what happens to them before they go abroad. Are they the right Ugandans to go abroad? Have they been given the skill set that they need to work abroad? And when they get there, should we just celebrate the remittances we get? Or some of those remittances or the NTR that comes out of the documentation that they do, can it be used for their protection? And also to ensure that the government of Uganda, as it befriends the many trade partners in the outside countries, could they also have labor attaches there to work on the issues of labor so that their voices can be heard? The last thing we've done, of course, is join the tripartite as part of the tripartite plus. We have an MOU with NOTU and FUE to ensure that we are on that table. When most of our people travel abroad, they are not able to associate, and many of them are unable to join unions. So we're looking at how do we work with ILO in the countries where people are unable to associate or have collective bargaining? How can they be assisted before they go? Why am I saying this? Many people don't know about unions in Uganda. Many people are employed in Uganda without contract. So when you tell them, make sure you have a contract, they're like, what are you talking about? I've been working in place X without a contract. When you talk about rights like maternity or you talk about rights like leave, people will tell you, but in Uganda I don't get leave. What is the great deal? So you find people who've already been working and they are used to a certain, in Uganda, like someone has gotten used to a certain environment. So when you tell them, even as you go there, look out for A, B, C, D. The person says, me, I don't care as long as they pay me what I want. So many of them are falling through the cracks, but that is what we are working on. We have brought on board the Association of Councillors. We are interesting them in understanding how outside countries work so that we can afford them a phone counseling. But we want the councillors, first of all, to appreciate. If someone tells you it is winter and I'm feeling A, B, C, D, Ugandans, I think, do not talk about suicidal tendencies. They don't. But there are certain things that can lead you to realize that this person is actually about to tip over the edge. Do our councillors have the ability to work with people who are living abroad, appreciate the circumstances under which they are working in order to survive? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Jailos, what's that ILO has done to support the partners? In addition to what actually Inid is saying, in that same line, what's that you're supporting to ensure social dialogue and decent work is really enhanced and felt among the partner organizations?
Yeah, thank you to the previous speakers. I think a lot has been said, but in this area of social dialogue, okay, Professor said when we introduce ourselves, we say we are specialized agents of the UN. We say that that's how we are, that's who we are. But we do provide technical assistance on establishment of the legal frameworks for social dialogue. And these are very important. For example, I don't remember if it is here in Uganda where it is said an institution or a company with less than 25 employees cannot unionize. It's either here or Tanzania. That's institutional framework. So workers who are working in that enterprise, if it is employing less than 25 persons, are not necessarily required to belong to a trade union. You know what that means? 90% of the workers are not necessarily covered, or they fall out. So these are the legal frameworks. Legal frameworks for tripartite social dialogue. And I know Professor Mtunzi is not in the panel, but I want him to also speak about the NEDLAC role in social dialogue. If you can give him a minute, because when we are giving examples of institutions, social dialogue institutions that are powerful, that have teeth, NEDLAC is one of them. Strengthening of these institutions. The machinery and process for social dialogue. You have social dialogue platforms in all these countries. In East Africa, we have them. Burundi, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda. You have them. Okay. But you find they have no budget. You find they have no secretariat. They cannot call their own meetings. And they are supposed to be served by an officer under permanent secretary. And they are advisory. In other words, the advice can be considered or can be thrown away, basically. So there can be a lot of good work that happens with these social dialogue institutions. But well, if the minister feels I don't like the advice, or I receive it and I put it on the side, that is it. So how can we better strengthen these institutions of social dialogue so that their advice, because it has come from players who are in the employment space, workers, employers, and government. These are the critical players in the world of work. So anything that comes from that discussion, from that agreement, must be something that is really touching on the issues that are affecting workers and employers. And so we have social dialogue institutions in some countries which are strong, which have their own budgets, which have teeth, and which operate independently, and whose decisions are considered in the shaping of policies and programs for workers, in the world of work. And this is where I wanted to learn about the South African experience. I'm saying this also because we are processing a request from the government of Uganda to visit a country where social dialogue works. And we're thinking about South Africa. I'm just letting the cat out of the bag now. But he is here. Please spend some time with him, and he can explain. But we will give him a minute to do that. Number two, formulating support to member states to formulate policies for better management of labor market governance. Number three, even training on aspects of collective bargaining itself. Collective bargaining, dispute resolution, and prevention. Very critical. How do you manage disputes? Because they will happen in the workplace. They will happen between a worker and an employer. How can they be managed? Some talk about arbitration and so on. ILO has all these tools and technical skills to assist, including also on benchmarking. So there is a lot that we can do. In fact, social dialogue is our way of work. When we talk about the tripartite nature, everything from the lowest meeting to the highest, which is the International Labour Conference, well organized and structured in terms of who comes, who attends, and who speaks, and how do you speak and represent the constituents, and what are the numbers, and so on, from the governing body, International Labour Conference, including to all the regional meetings, including at country level. But I am not a practitioner. I will leave the last minute for my boss, professor, to also add on the NEDLAC experience on social dialogue to say how it works, if you allow.
Okay, thank you. Professor, in 1 minute.
May I refuse? Because now I'm being given work by the second. She's also giving me work. So NEDLAC is the National Economic Development and Labor Council. And in simple terms, it has a budget of its own. It's the House of Social Dialogue in South Africa. Everybody who talks about social dialogue all over the world talks about NEDLAC. It has its problems, but I was at its AGM last week, Friday. Looks like they're cleaning up their house. But basically, government, labor, business, there, everybody's equal. Okay, you go there and you beat each other up. When you come out, you decide on a law. It comes from NEDLAC first before it goes to the processing of laws to go to parliament and whatever you. So NEDLAC approves everything in the country, right? But having said that, when she talked about, there's something she mentioned earlier, and I made a note, I just can't remember now what it was. I was thinking, there's also a problem, generally. The problem is that there's organized labor, there's organized business, and then there's unorganized labor and unorganized business. Now, NEDLAC also caters for organized things, not for unorganized things. And when I spoke about informality earlier on, that's the elephant in the room I was talking about, is that it's a big elephant in our countries. So who then represents those people? Because the argument is that we don't even know they exist, right? So as much as NEDLAC is the best model, in my view, and you can learn from its mistakes as well to do better, I think you must also be aware that maybe you can improve it as Uganda and put in other elements. And, one of the things you said, I think you said something +1 when you spoke. +1. Then I was thinking, yes, South Africa has this tripartism +1. It's not accepted in many places. But at NEDLAC, you have government, business, labor, plus community organizations as well. In fact, they are so powerful that at the AGM, as the DG and the minister were starting to talk, they said point of order. And they said, no, we'll come to. He says, no, you're not going to proceed. We're going to start with this point of order. It was because they forgot to have an interpreter for disabled people.
Thank you. That's very interesting. We have come to the end of our discussion, our panel, our session. And just in 1 minute, I would give each one of us here 1 minute to say a last word. I'll start from here.
Thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Federation of Uganda Employers for organizing this forum for us to come and express ourselves. But I also, on the same note, I want to thank the employers seated in this room. Those of you who lived here during the COVID period, you know what happened. And most of these employers went out of their way to ensure that their workers survive. I want to thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mine is a call to employers and workers representatives here. We have a social dialogue structure, tripartite social dialogue structure in Uganda. Can we continue to push to make it stronger, more independent, to make it, to give it more teeth, to make it work and operate? And maybe we are still far away from the NEDLAC, but at least we can move towards that. So it is us who are the players in the world of work, and we use our influence, we use our opportunities to meet with the relevant authorities to be able to do that. It will make our jobs easy for most of the work that we do. Thank you.
Enid?
I would also like to add my voice to thank the Federation of Ugandan Employers for having had this dialogue. It has been very educative for me. It's given me an opportunity to know about the best employers, breweries, although I can't work with them, unfortunately, and AMREF, due to my beliefs. However, I also add my voice to thank the employers who are in this room, and to urge FUE to widen its scope. We have Uganda manufacturers, we have PSFU, we have people in the informal industry who are also workers. We need them to all come into this space to understand how they survived COVID and what ideas they also have to bring on the room, because they are the biggest employers, as it were. And lastly, also to thank the FUE for remembering that there are people who are employed by persons overseas. Whereas I'm seated here as CEO of the Association of External Recruitment Agencies, you could consider inviting the embassies of the countries where Ugandans go to work as part of the dialogue. Then they would hear from us about what we think should happen there, and maybe we could also learn from them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Grace.
Okay, thank you very much, Dan. Mine is really to thank the employers here and those that have not been able to come. To say that thank you very much for your continuous support. And just to say that we are still available and at your service whenever you need any support and any advice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, panelists, and thanks the audience for listening to us. We appreciate and we shall keep engaging. We thank you so much.
I request the panel to remain on the platform for the next 10 minutes, which we are going to share. Let's applaud them, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to congratulate you because none of you is going to get a bill for drinks this evening, because you all remained alert. And again, thank you very much, our panel discussants, for really keeping us alert. I also know now there is stronger sex. Yes, I now know the stronger sex. Of course, the first part of the exam which we did, and the second part, I know that the weaker sex is the stronger sex because of the weakness of the stronger sex for the weaker sex. You are alert. Clap for yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. In the next 10 minutes, we are going to do 3 very short functions, and then we shall close this session. I'm glad that we are back on course. In the next 2 minutes, Goldie Oboma is going to tell us, we're actually going to have this graduation in 10 minutes, and thereafter have a group photograph, all of us, for the record. Goldie will tell us about this entrepreneurship. Huh? Employment relations. Okay. She will tell us about ETER and the programs that they have been doing, of course, part of which relates to the dialogue we've just had. Professor Mutunzi will preside over the handing over of certificates and also greet our graduates. And thereafter, we will have one of the graduates give a testimony in 1 minute. Those are 6 minutes. And in 4 minutes, we shall organize ourselves for a group photograph and also have a light dance as we approach 5 o'clock. Thereafter, you want another exercise? I ask you for 10 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. May I request you, wonderful ladies and gentlemen, kindly keep your positions as we preside over this function so that we can have you for the pictorial. I'd like to invite Ms. Goldie Oboma to come and tell us about this program and also bifurcate those abbreviations, prepare your candidates for the presentation of certificates, and I will request Professor Mutunzi to perform this function. Pardon? Okay, I have strayed on professional ground. Okay, I withdraw. I'll invite Ms. Goldie Oboma. Let's do this in the 6 minutes, as I said. We save the 4 minutes. And friends, there is a cup of coffee and tea as we close for the day. I ask you just to allow us those 10 minutes so that we close this also with appropriate decorum as we started. Thank you very much indeed, Ms. Goldie.
Thank you. It's evening. Good evening, everybody. Good evening once again.
Good evening.
Yeah, some energy in the room. Some energy in the room. It's an honor to be here and all protocol observed. Our guest of honor and all our distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, of course, our esteemed employers in this room represented. Some of you have left, we know, but we thank you, especially for all of you who have been here, who have been diligent enough to really hold on a bit. Huh? So at this point in time, there are 2 things. My role here is very simple. Just to give you a highlight of what is happening right now. And before I do that, about the ETER program. ETER is Executive Training and Employment Relations. It's an executive diploma, actually. And just before I say that, I wanted to introduce to you what we call Malaika. Malaika is a program of FUE with ITCILO, Turin, run for female executives at the front line. So any female leader in this room or aspirant leader in your organizations who is at the front line, middle level or low level, and you want to really bring them up, it's a 5-week training that we are starting on 7th of November, ending 9th of December. It's a 5-week program. Very, very interesting program. You may ask yourself, why this program? This program, like we earlier on said here, is to equip ladies stand into leadership positions. But beyond that, we're now not focusing at the executive top. We're focusing on the ladies at the front line. People who have leadership characteristics, who have attributes and aspirations to be leaders within your organization. We're giving them forum to be able to set up your workplace structures, to be able to accommodate them, and also give them a platform for practice in terms of best practice of leadership as female leaders are concerned. Having said that, let me run very quickly to ITA MC. Yes, ITA, like I said, is the executive training in employment relations. It's a 9-month program. 9-month program now, in a sense that it's a blended program done both online and face-to-face. This is a program that is hosted by FUE in Uganda, under the ILO in Turin, and it's a very interesting program with 4 modules, and these 4 modules cover issues to do with industrial and employment relations, issues to do with the labor laws, human resource management, leadership, and managerial soft skills. So by the time you finish this program, it has a test to it, by the way. You just don't graduate. It has a test to it. And I'm honored today as FUE, part of FUE, to introduce you to the graduates we have who have been, struggling and doing their best. And just to confirm to all of you that they passed. Some of their exams, yes, were evaluated in Turin, and they had the opportunity to do both the online in Turin and both in Uganda here. So I'll go straight away to read out their names. And what we're going to do is, ladies and gentlemen, graduates, if we call your names, just come straight forward. We'll use this opportunity before the panelists here. So I'll call Nanyonga Barbara. Please come. Oh yes, there she is. Nanyonga Barbara, please give her a round of applause. I'll call Asiki Isaac Dagama. I'll call Pamela Kisibo. Yes, you can. Thank you. Ajuna Patrick, please come. Yes, yes, make a line. They need to see your faces. Make sure you're very visible. Huh? We need Biasije Mabel, please come. David Catalo. I hope my pronunciation is right. Yes, Rita Nakonde, please come. Christine Wanyama, please come. Auma Harriet, please find your way forward. Kedres, Kedres Muhindo, please come. Sam Wambi, very welcome, please come. Juliet, yes, I think she's already in front. Oh, Juliet is not in the room. Yes, Juliet, please come. Just Juliet Kabaitara, please come on. I'll ask Yusuf. Where is Yusuf? Yusuf is a training manager. Yusuf, please find your way. Yes. Our executive director, Douglas Opio, is in another ward, but he should have also been here. And I will use this opportunity to invite Rosemary Senabulia. Please come. Oh, yes, please. please. I'll now move away from the microphone.
Can we have the mobile microphone?
Just to clarify, yes, Rosemary Senabulia is one of our facilitators and the regional founders of this program in Uganda. So we're grateful to have her here, and as she gives us the certificates, I'll hand over their ribbons. Yes, and a professor will be able to then give that, we'll invite him to give. Yes, Professor. Yes, right here, yes. Yes.
I think you read.
Barbara Nanyonga, please come.
Are they the same?
Yes.
Okay, I'm learning. So it's a learnership, it's an internship. So, congratulations. And you shake their hand. And that as well.
Yes. Isaac.
So who do I listen to? The youngster or the It's very confusing. Congratulations.
Chisibo Pamela.
Especially for the
Ajuna Patrick.
Congratulations, Najib.
Let's really applaud them. Let's really applaud them. That's why we're here, to encourage them and others that are going to come.
Nsamba Judith.
Supposed to shake your hand. There's too many things to do.
Dambusin Jemebo. David Catalo.
Congratulations, sir. Okay, I think Paparazzi.
Rita Nakonde. Christine Wanyana.
Oh, I'm giving it to you. Thank you.
Auma Harriet.
You remain in the line for a photograph after this.
Sam Wambi.
Your jacket is lovely. Yes, but look at the camera.
Juliet Kabaitira. Then Mohindo Kedris. No, Golda. Let me be.
Professor, before you join them for a photo moment, may it also please you to hand over these certificates of appreciation to the team that from Makerere University that supported the AIR Awards. The first one goes to Professor Chikoma Julius. Nansama Joyce.
For the camera, bro.
Yes, you remain there. Chetuma Perez. Chetuma Perez. Professor can receive it. Mukwaya Isaac. Mukwaya Isaac. Turukumwe Mariamai. Wanyana Christine. Wanyana Christine.
Oh, you are Wanyana Christine. Okay, there you go, Wanyana.
Right, Professor, I request you to find a suitable place in the middle there. You greet these people, share your sentiments, congratulate them as the picture is taken. Please, as the picture is taken, please carry this mic. With Rosemary, okay? May I request the panelists also to rise and join this photo moment, and some of the graduates, please also take the higher level.
So, colleagues, this is just to congratulate our esteemed graduates here. The interesting thing is that I couldn't have been asked to do something better, actually. You know, it's amazing how the universe works. Because my most favorite part of the ILO is the Turin Center. I chaired the employers program in Turin, and I only gave it up because I became the vice president for all employers, and I had to give it to somebody else. But every chance I had in the ILO, they know I don't need an excuse to go and lecture at the Turin Center. So I go to the Turin Center to lecture every now and then. And even in the centenary declaration I was talking about earlier today, when we were talking about skills in the centenary declaration, we were talking about the ITCILO, I always get it wrong, ITCILO center being integrated for skills into the whole of the ILO, so the ILO doesn't operate in a silo. So congratulations, guys, because this is what it's about, the reskilling, upskilling. It's the only way to manage the transition, by the way. There's no other way of managing the transition. So congratulations to everybody. Thank you.
Let's now have a picture without a microphone. One word, okay?
Yeah, I would like to thank the employers who sponsored these ladies and gentlemen on this program, and to appeal to other employers to please sponsor more of your ladies and gentlemen to come and attend this program. It's a very, very important program. Next intake is 18th December this year. Please register. It's a very, very important program which you cannot get at the cost which is being paid in Uganda here, because it is partly an international program with the International Training, ILO International Training Center in Turin. Thank you.
Okay, let's remain here, please, photographers, organizers. I'd like to request the rest of the congregation to join us. Please, organizers, within the space available. We may have to make another line in the front, and others, let's have as many lines as we can have behind for a group photograph. Please welcome. Please welcome. Please welcome photographers. Please, cameramen, organizers. Organizers. You may have another line behind the front line. And then let's have as many lines as we can have on the platform so that we can all fit and have this. Remember, this is the inaugural conference. This is the inaugural conference, and these pictures are going to travel far and wide. Don't miss the opportunity. May I request Mr. Cherove to step down? Please join the front line. Can you find a place for Mr. Jelos on the front line? Please, organizers, photographers, please, organizers. Yes, good idea. If we can have some seats on the front. Very good. Can you get it? Do you have everybody? Please don't miss the opportunity. Let's have as many as can fit in. Not minus the MC. The MC will come in there. Do you have everybody? Right? Right, keep your positions, remain in your positions, ladies and gentlemen. My instructions were to bring this conference to an end at exactly 5 p.m. Who has a watch? A round of applause for the MC. I thank you very much. You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you very much, the organizers. God bless you. Have a pleasant evening till we meet again. Thank you very much.